Pandit Shankar Ghosh was born on the 10th of October 1935 in a middle-class Bengali family in North Calcutta to parents Mohit Kumar Ghosh and Ranimala Ghosh. From an early age, Pandit Shankar Ghosh learnt tabla from renowned gurus like Pandit Sudarshan Adhikari, Ustad Firoz Khan Sahab and Pandit Anathnath Bose.
আমার দিদি নীলা খুব ভালো গান করতেন। তখন রেগুলার দিদির রিয়াজ চলছে আর আমি একধারে তবলাটা পড়ে রয়েছে, ওই তবলাটা নিয়ে আমার নাতি এখন যেরকম বাজায় ধুম ধুম পেটায়, আমিও সেরকম পেটাতে শুরু করি। তো এইটা দেখে তখন বাবা দেখলেন ওর তবলার প্রতি এত ভালোবাসা রয়েছে, ওদের একদিন নিয়ে গেলেন অনাথনাথ বসের কাছে।
The real inspiration in his journey in the world of tabla came from his final guru, the great Pandit Gyan Prakash Ghosh. Many stories abound about the days in Gyan Babu's house in Dixon Lane, where great tabla players of the future were being honed by Param Guru Pandit Gyan Prakash Ghosh. Pandit Kanai Dutt, Pandit Shyamal Bose, and of course Pandit Shankar Ghosh were part of a troika of professional Bengali tabla players who established themselves in the 1950s. The young Shankar developed an important association with the Kancher Mandir of Boranagar, which used to be presided over by the great Swami Satyananda. It is here at the Kancher Mandir that Shankar Ghosh made his debut with the great Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. This association would very soon bring about a paradigm shift in Shankar's career and his life. In the year 1964, Shankar married Sanjukta, a simple girl with dreams of becoming a professional classical singer.
আমি ছোটবেলা থেকে গান করতাম, তো যখন আমার 11 বছর বয়স তখন আমি ডিকসন লেনে পণ্ডিত জ্ঞান প্রকাশ ঘোষের বাড়িতে একটা স্কুল ছিল, তো সেখানে আমি শিখতে যাই প্রসূন বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়ের কাছে, পণ্ডিত প্রসূন বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়, আর ওইখানে আমার হাজব্যান্ড তখন তবলার টিচার ছিল।
Subsequently, in 1966, a son was born to them, Bickram. In 1967, the Ghosh family migrated to the United States of America, where Shankar continued teaching at the Ali Akbar College and Sanjukta joined as a vocal teacher. The next few years saw the family settle down comfortably in the Bay Area in America, and from a traditional Bengali lifestyle in Kolkata, they adapted to the American way of life. The change of cultural milieu would be an interesting reference point for the family in the years to come. The period spent in America would be very important for Shankar's development as an artist and as a person. He was exposed to a worldview as well as to a bevy of great musicians from the Indian and the international scenario. He collaborated with the likes of John Handy, the famous saxophone player. Mickey Hart, the famed drummer from the iconic band The Grateful Dead, became his student. Vincent Delgado, another famous percussionist, too became Shankar's student. The seeds of tabla-driven composition, which eventually blossomed into music of the drums, were lain here at the Ali Akbar College, where Shankar started a tabla ensemble with his students. On the teaching front, Shankar introduced some unique teaching methods at the college.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Extremely intelligent, witty, charming, and with an ability to communicate, Shankar was able to inspire hundreds of students into the firmament of tabla during this period.
I told I went to Guruji. He told what? Bang, 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 bang. Play tabla, bang, bang. He was really very much upset. And I told that my father was not so much upset. My father was really interested in it. And he was also fumbling. He didn't know that how good I'm going to be, but he really liked it. So he was thinking maybe, but he didn't know. And I told that you just put my name in the expenditure, not in the credit. So he told that, all right, if you are going to live with us, you'll have to earn your own bread. I told, all right, I will try. I'll go and beg.
One of the reasons why Shankar turned out to be one of tabla's greatest teachers is because he owned the perfect pair of hands. His own guru, the great Pandit Ghosh, once said that it was important that pictures and videos were taken of Shankar's hands and archived because he was sure that generations of tabla players would follow the setting of his hands as an example of how finger techniques of tabla should be applied. His keen and innovative mind saw him introduce certain new and unique methods into the teaching apparatus. He introduced the wonderful concept of the Tala class, whereby he would take the students outdoors and do workshops on the various aspects of Tala. Till his last days, Pandit Shankar Ghosh continued to rivet his students with extremely successful Tala class workshops across the globe. This vibrant period saw the duo of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan and Pandit Shankar Ghosh perform some historic concerts worldwide. As with Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ustad Allah Rakha, the duo of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan and Pandit Shankar Ghosh did much to propagate the cause of Indian classical music in the West during this period. In 1971, Shankar took a very daring step in disassociating himself from the Ali Akbar College and returning back to India. He missed being in his motherland and also wanted a more traditionally Indian upbringing for his son Bickram. His position at the college was first filled by a very young Ustad Zakir Hussain and later by Shankar's talented nephew, Pandit Swapan Chaudhary. Back in India, Shankar started performing regularly with a variety of great and talented artists. His unique style of accompaniment made him a coveted performer in every major stage across the country. He continued to play with Ali Akbar Ji as well in and around India. A memorable tour of Bangladesh ensued in 1979. Around this period, Shankar recorded several memorable long-playing records which have become part of the Hall of Fame of Indian classical music. Amongst these is the famed Darbari Kanra recording with Ustad Vilayat Khan. Here, Shankar introduced the concept of opening the gut with a tukra instead of an uthan. The kritikta, kritikti, tukra and the following sitar khani theka are considered to be one of the high points of tabla accompaniment in the history of the instrument. The seeds of the drum orchestra, which were lain in the Ali Akbar College in the 1960s, found fruition as the magnum opus Music of the Drums, which opened to a packed house in Kolkata in February 1979. Hitherto, audiences had never heard drumming on such a huge level, orchestrated to perfection, performed by stellar musicians. Music of the Drums created such an impact that it changed people's ideas regarding the range and possibilities of drumming forever. This unique orchestra, inspired by Gyan Babu's ensemble, Drums of India, was formed through a process of ideation which occurred through the mid-70s, and many great personalities of those times were involved in the meetings which finally led to the first concert of the orchestra. The team consisted of students of Pandit Shankar Ghosh who had honed their skills under him over the years. The use of rare instruments like the Tabla tarang, the Jal tarang, Madal, Srikhol, and their combination with Western drums like the congas, the drum kit, etc., made Music of the Drums an absolutely unique venture. Compositionally, each piece heralded the deep understanding of instrumental classical music that Pandit Shankar Ghosh had imbibed. A big break for the drum orchestra came in 1982 when it was featured as the finale performance of the Asiad held in New Delhi that year. The show, needless to say, was a humongous success, and the orchestra gained nationwide recognition. In 1990, a very important tour of the United Kingdom saw the orchestra, now rechristened the Calcutta Drum Orchestra, perform across Britain at various venues. The tour was organized by the Asian Music Circuit. Audiences everywhere were mesmerized by this 3-hour drumming extravaganza.
which is very traditional fixed composition. It is a practice to play some fixed compositions in between theme and variations.
Pandit Shankar Ghosh increased the scope and range of tabla solo playing manifold. During the 70s, he started playing full-length tabla solos for over 3 hours in various talas, which were hitherto never or less explored. From villages in Bengal to auditoriums in Europe, Shankar took it upon himself to popularize tabla solo, even while he himself pushed the boundaries of the subject to areas never exploited before. The introduction and exploration of concepts like Muqam, Bemancha, Shuruat in various jatis, advanced level tihais, creation of compositions using a huge array of bowls were some of the areas where Shankar left an indelible mark in tabla sahitya. The telling of stories associated with compositions, exploring the various rasas through his playing, and never fearing to tread the path of spontaneity were pivotal features of Shankar's tabla solo concerts. It is not an overstatement to say that the subject of tabla solo playing achieved greater heights than ever before in the hands of Pandit Shankar Ghosh.
In flamenco dance,
Some of the greatest names in the world of tabla today owe their taaleem to Pandit Shankar Ghosh. The legacy he created is almost unparalleled in the world of tabla. Pandit Shankar Ghosh started teaching at a very young age and continued to do so with unmatched sincerity throughout his life. In later years, he had institutions in France and Germany where he taught regularly.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
He also taught in the United Kingdom, and many of his students from these lands are today successful performers.
always you will have to recite. That is the prime thing.
Besides teaching in Kolkata, where he lived most of his life, Pandit Shankar Ghosh also taught in several other cities throughout India.
I want to say 3 in 5. I want to say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what I have to recite is 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The incredible insight that he had into the psyche of the students is amply demonstrated by the success rate of the professionals he honed. The teachings of Pandit Shankar Ghosh often extended from aspects of the tabla into the realm of life and the human body.
You see, there are 2 points. One is to learn, and then another is to perform.
He saw them all as interconnected. It will be extremely hard for future generations of gurus to match up to the standards of teaching set by this great guru, Pandit Shankar Ghosh. To the very last day of his life, Pandit Shankar Ghosh worked tirelessly as a performer, a guru, and an experimenter. In the last decade of his life, he wrote 3 supremely important books which encompass the entirety of the subject matter of the tabla as Pandit Shankar Ghosh saw it. The importance of these books for students of tabla can never be overestimated. Brilliantly envisaged and written, Shankar Ghosh packed every possible information, analysis, and creative possibility related to the tabla into these 3 books titled Anadha 1 and 2 and The Sutra of Dehais. Pandit Shankar Ghosh continued to teach in India and abroad right to the end. He also continued to experiment with drums throughout his life. Shankar Ghosh performed his last tabla solo in Hyderabad in October 2015, just a few months before his demise. What he contributed to the subject of the tabla is matter for research for several generations of students and professionals. His entire life was dedicated to the subject he lovingly took up for his own as a child. He will be remembered every time the tabla is mentioned on this earth. He is an example of a life spent with the utmost sincerity in the service of rhythm. His grand life work has rightfully earned him a place amongst the stars to continue shining forever bright.
Learning, I started at the age of 6. And performing, I started at the age of 18. Gharana is a style, but if you say style, it's very vague. That what is a style? So, what will be accepted by the audience, accepted by people, those who love music, that is a gharana. You have to have a stamp. Before my playing, nobody played Suruat so Bilambit Lay. And when I played, it is just like alap. People were saying that we can hear you are singing with your tabla.